Good morning and good afternoon or good evening to everybody. Welcome to this edition of our STARS Alumni Lounge. I am Tony Schönenberger. I'm the co-founder of STARS and the executive chairman of STARS. We actually have two online sessions. The STARS webinar is a public platform, and the STARS Alumni Lounge today is a forum exclusively for STARS alumni, for friends of STARS, and also for donors. Participation is limited to approximately maximum 20 participants to make it as interactive as possible. So, with other words, a select group is attending this session live, and many more will watch it later on as a recording. I also have the pleasure to welcome two board members. It's Hans Engartner, who is the co-founder of STARS, and it's Lim Xiangguan. He's a member of the international board from Singapore. Xiangguan, good to have you from Singapore. Now, today we have the pleasure to talk with Domenic von PLANTA. So good morning, Domenic. Great to have you on this session.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Domenic is actually based in Germany, but he's now in Denmark. He has been the COO and Deputy CEO of Schwind since 2018. As you know, Schwind is headquartered in Germany and is a global leader regarding high-tech solutions. We will hear more about it in a minute. Before joining Schwind, Domenic worked for a strategy consulting company and also for Buhler in Uzwil. And last but not least, Domenic is a STARS alumnus. So we have about 30 minutes with Domenic. First, he will give us a short introduction, a short presentation. Then we have a Q&A session. If you have any questions, and I do hope that you have many questions for Domenic, please use the raise hand function on the screen. So let's go right into medias res. Domenic, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present today. So I'll give you a quick overview of what refractive surgery is all about and what role we are playing as Schwind in this refractive surgery universe, so to say. By 2050, it's estimated that about 50% of the world population will be myopic. That's an increase versus the roughly 35% today. And in some scientific papers or also less scientific papers, we speak about the epidemia of myopia. So it's really a progressing state of eye health challenges. And the root causes are mainly our changes in lifestyle. That is one aspect. I mean, you see the two children watching screens, looking at screens. Screen time, basically the distance you look, so less distance on screens compared to other media makes that the eyeball is growing longer, and thus children become myopic, but also more time spent indoors. It's estimated that, let's say, fresh air, UV light is reducing the myopia incidence risk. But I mean, polluted cities, but also general lifestyles of focusing more, studying earlier, maybe leads to more time spent indoors. Of course, now less the refractive part, but let's say other refractive conditions or eye conditions are also driven by aging population. And that's also mainly the presbyopia topic, which we'll speak about later on. So what are those refractive conditions? I mean, myopia for sure is one of the most common one, or the biggest one. It's actually It means that the distance between the cornea and the retina is too long. So the light is focusing before the retina, and roughly, let's say, 90% of uncorrected refractive errors are myopia changes. Hyperopia, the remaining 10% roughly, the distance is too short, and thus the light is focused behind the retina. Astigmatism is mainly an imperfection of the curvature of the cornea. So the cornea is oval instead of being of spherical shape. And so the light rays don't focus properly. And that goes often hand in hand, actually, with either myopia or hyperopia. And last but not least, presbyopia. That's actually mainly an accommodation challenge. So it's basically the lens is hardening over time, like any other tissue is hardening, and we're not able to accommodate anymore. What are the treatment methods? Of course, the most well-known ones, covering about 90% of all treatment methods, are glasses or contact lenses, and about 5%, 5 to 6%, depending on the country, is laser vision correction, so laser-based eye surgery. And then we also have lens implants, and we'll come to that later. I mean, there are different types. It's what is called the phakic lens, so intraocular contact lenses. So where you put the lens on top of the existing lens, and then more and more, when you grow older, have a cataract or need for cataract surgery, the lens is replaced, and it's not replaced with a monofocal lens, but with a multifocal or lens, which then allows you also to have a refractive correction. So focusing on laser vision correction, that's where we are active as Schwind. What are the different options? Surface treatment started a bit more than 30 years ago with what's called PRK, LASIK, or trans-PRK lately. So it's basically the epithelium. So the top layer of the eye is removed with either just alcohol or a blade in PRK and LASIK, and then the laser is doing the treatment. In trans-PRK, the epithelium is removed with the laser, and then the eye is corrected afterwards. It's a very, let's say, it's a very good, safe, and efficient method. The challenge is that the epithelium needs to grow back, so you have an open wound, so to say, and that takes a couple of days, 3 to 4 days, and so of course you can't. I mean, you need to take some time off, let's say, before you go back to work. But it's very good for people with the thinner corneas. And there are patients, I mean, or eye surgeons who focus mainly on surface treatment. The biggest part of laser vision correction is LASIK, and lately femto-LASIK, where you create a flap. So you cut a flap. In LASIK, it was cut with the microkeratome. Now most of the flaps are cut with a femtosecond laser. You put the flap back, and you do a laser treatment and put the flap back again. And that is a fast recovery. You have the wow effect. Basically, you get up after surgery and you see clearly. There can be flap complications, which is the main risk of LASIK. And lately, or let's say about 10 years ago, mainly pioneered by Carl Zeiss MedTech as a company, the small incision lenticular extraction or lenticular extraction based treatment, where you basically cut out the refractive volume, which you want to reduce. Instead of ablating it with an excimer laser, you cut out the refractive volume out of the eye, and you pull it out via a small incision on the side of the eye. So now coming to us as a company, Schwind, On the right side, you see the Amaris, which has been our flagship excimer laser or it still is, it has been for the past 10 to 12 years. Sorry, so that's the part you need for ablation in surface treatment or in LASIK. And lately, about a year ago, we got CE approval for our new laser, the Atos femtosecond laser, to do flaps, but also to do lenticular extraction. So now we can cover the whole universe of refractive treatments. Refractive treatments, of course, the surgical procedure in itself is not the only part. You also need diagnostic measurements, treatment planning, and then post-op checks afterwards. And we cover this also with the diagnostic part, and treatment planning is almost equally important as the surgical procedure. As a company, we're a mid-sized company, the classical German Mittelstand. We work a lot with distribution partners and present in more than 100 countries with about 30 years. Next year, we'll celebrate 30 years in refractive surgeries. And we are market leaders in the excimer part. Let's say if we take out the US, we're not present in the US for various strategic reasons. But we managed to establish ourselves as market leaders in the excimer side, and that despite changing competition. So if you look at this picture, let's say most competitors are listed MedTech giants, so to say. And that's a question we get often to say, okay, how do you do it? And I think we can elaborate maybe in the discussion. I don't want to go into each of those elements, but I think one of the main elements is to be close to customers, to be close to the surgeons, to have the ear at the surgeon and really be able to have a virtuous feedback loop and transport what is coming back from the market as quickly as possible into new products, new software. And that I come back to it later in the challenges, is also becoming more and more difficult with increased regulatory pressure. But what are the challenges for refractive surgery apart the regulatory aspect? The affordability is certainly one element. Although, let's say, over the whole lifetime, refractive laser vision correction is less expensive usually than glasses or contact lenses, but of course it's a cash expense. Depending on country, the treatment per eye can be anywhere between 1,000 to 2,500 euros. Sometimes it's even less in some countries, but still, and mainly the market is targeting younger people, somewhere between 25 and 30 years old. So for them, it's still a significant cash expense. And fear is the second big challenge to overcome. Of course, the idea of having a flap cut into your eye or having part of your cornea ablated is a challenge for many people. The other aspect I mentioned, regulatory pressure. If you just look at the general adhesion process, one of the big elements is to test your products in the market at some point, and that's becoming more and more difficult. The step of going into the market, that's not only for refractive surgery, of course, it's all for all MedTech products now with the medical device regulation, but this will most likely slow down innovation in Europe and makes innovation more and more expensive. Nevertheless, there are exciting times in refractive for refractive surgery. I mean, you have cornea-based approaches. We mentioned the presbyopia challenge. Yes, it's you lose academization, but you have, let's say, means of doing multifocal profiles into your cornea. You can also do it with an artificial lens. We'll come to that in a second. There are processes which are called lyric, which is still in the, let's say, development stage, but where you alter the water content of the cornea. So without cutting, you alter the refractive index of your cornea. And then the drops, that's not really, let's say, interesting for us as a company, but there are eye drops targeting also mainly presbyopia, to mainly lens to modify the lens, so to say, and be able to accommodate again. And then you have in-eye treatments with lenses, also a lyric type of approach where you implant a lens and then do a refractive pattern on your lens, or where you adjust your lens based on ultraviolet light. That's on the bottom left here. On the right side, we see a picture of the company called RxSight, because the lens, when you implant it, you're never 100% sure where it's going to be, and sometimes you need maybe half a diopter or quarter diopter adjustment. So it's a very innovative field, ophthalmology in general, but refractive surgery, and so it feels, despite the 30 years where the technology has been around, sometimes I feel we're still in a startup area where lots of things are happening, and that of course makes the job also interesting and fun. And this is it for the overview. Try to stick to the time almost, and please let's go to the discussion.
Impressive what you've just said, and I would like to encourage all of you to take the opportunity to ask the right questions to Dominic.
Statement, because I think also for Dominic, it's a probably strange situation having a company who's really competing sitting here in this conference. So I'm somehow reluctant to ask straight questions, but I think what is common for companies like Schwind and us is, of course, the purpose of bringing healthcare to people and to improve the life of the people. And I think that's a common theme that go through all the industry, because Dominic indicated it perfectly. There is a big problem regarding eye and eye healthcare, because many people face severe problems with regard to consumption, like a smartphone. They have severe problems regarding lifestyle, healthcare, and boundary condition. So in general, I totally agree with the statement that it's an exciting time for refractive surgery. I think, and this is probably one thing we have in common. We are both German company, and we the competitive arena is a global arena. And probably Dominic can elaborate from his point of view what is probably challenging being a German company in the context of global competition, and in particular here regulation.
Yes, thanks for sure. So just one comment also on the, of course we are competitors, but I mean, as you have seen, let's say 5% of the potential population only is treated with refractive surgery, and still 90%, more than 90% are wearing glasses or contact lenses. Mm-hmm. So I think there is a big opportunity there at the end also to grow the market. So we feel there's a lot to be done in growing the market in general, which allows for a lot of room of let's say many more competitors, so to say. But answering your question, yes. What I briefly mentioned about the medical device regulation, I mean, it was mainly generated, or it came out of this breast implant scandal. Our perspective is that at the end, if people want to fraud the system, it's possible, independent from the amount of regulation you put into the system. And we are really in Europe now moving towards increasing timelines for market approval, increasing, let's say, hurdles for market approval, whereas the US realized that patient safety is not only about protecting your patient from, but it's also giving access to new innovation from your patient. And for many years, the US has been lagging behind, but I think they are they are now realizing and making efforts within the FDA to accelerate those processes. And China also is taking perspectives on how to accelerate approval processes. So I think that's a big challenge within Europe if we continue. I mean, if we instead of leapfrogging, let's say, the regulatory challenge, we are just 5 years behind and now increasing the regulatory aspects. And on top of it, we have, yes, European regulation, but now Switzerland is out of the MDR because they didn't manage to get aligned with other let's say the bilateral Abkommen, so to say, and so your test market or you need to do much more to be able to access the market than a US company which does one approval and then you have access to 300 million potential consumers, let's say. So I think that's really a challenge for a European company, and we need to be careful that we're not losing on the innovation of our MedTech companies in general. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to confirm what Dominic is saying, and in particular for Swiss companies, I think hard times are coming because due to the fail of the bilaterale Abkommen, they suffer really significant costs and market restrictions because now they have to apply in every single European country, and this is a strange and costly situation, and gives a kind of flavor what happens when regulation takes over. It increases the costs go up tremendously, and the market potentials go down dramatically when the regulation is not set up in an appropriate way. And of course, it's first of all about patient safety, but it's always a risk-benefit evaluation. It's about the risks, but also the benefit. Dominic mentioned perfectly that the patients, they have strong benefits, and it's not and the regulators shouldn't stand between good innovation and the customer benefits. Of course, they have a particular role, and it's good to have them in the game. But the regulation in all means is a big issue in all kind of medical fields, and can finally lead to a limited market access and limited market potential.
I have two questions. First, Xiang Guan is not only a board member of STARS, he is a professor at the university in Singapore, and he was the former CEO of GIC, which is the big sovereign fund in Singapore. So Xiang Guan, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks very much, Tony, and thank you, Dominic, for your presentation. About the figure that you quoted, saying that by 2050 you have 50% of all these young people coming into myopia. That's quite a alarming figure, and maybe for companies like yours, you're quite happy about all the business that would represent. What I want to ask is really, when you talk about cataract operation, what you do in a cataract, you actually implant a new lens, an artificial lens, and like you say, maybe it's multifocal. What I want to ask though is about what people are talking about, an increasing trend where perfectly healthy young people are being encouraged to put in a lens, like in the case of cataract. Well, in the case of cataract, you cannot help it. You just need to go through that operation, remove the cataract and put the lens in. But what do you see in terms of developments where do you see an increasing proportion of the world deciding to implant these lenses? So instead of LASIK and these other treatments, to actually put in a lens like is being done for cataract cases.
Mm. Yes, that's true. I mean, it's I would say almost more of a trend in Asia so far, but it's also present in some parts of the world where if you go to your eye surgeon let's say in your early or mid 40s and start to have presbyopia, he might tell you, okay, instead of doing a presbyopia treatment on your cornea today and exchanging your lens in 5 years, why not put an artificial multifocal lens in it today, and then you're good for the next 15 years, so to say. And it's true, it's a bit of perception of the patient to say, lens exchange is still kind of a challenging part. I mean, and there's a debate, let's say, to some extent within ophthalmologists also to say, to what extent, why should you, some say, why should you punish the cornea for something which the lens is responsible for, so loss of accommodation, so to say. On the other hand, some other ophthalmologists say your lens is still accommodating for until you're, let's say, mid-50s, even if it's only 1 or 2 diopters, but you should not lose on that accommodation. So it's of course, we as a company would rather say the lens implant is also a significant surgery, so don't do that lightheartedly, so to say. But it's difficult to influence. But yes, there is a trend, and you can question. I mean, the advantage of the lens is, in theory, you could replace it if there's, I don't know, new material, new lenses coming, but it's also cumbersome. So it's true. And then okay, the question is, it's a bit a question of perspective of what ophthalmologists feel is more relevant or easier for them. And many cataract surgeons come from the cataract side and not necessarily from a refractive side. So for them, it's more natural maybe to implant a lens, let's say.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe as in all things in life, you compromise, do one eye and leave the other eye alone. Okay, Tony, sorry.
Okay. I have 3 or 4 more questions. May I kindly ask you short question, short answer, if possible? David Kurmann, he's from EGS Beteiligungen. He's a Stars alumnus. Please, David.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. I just have a question. I understand that your competitors are mostly one-stop shops, so offering the hardware, the lasers, and also the lenses. How do you compete against possible bundles of them?
It's difficult to some extent, but okay, what happens sometimes that our distributors have a larger offering. So that's one way to cover up for that. But otherwise, I mean, definitely what we try to be, let's say, to convince ophthalmologists that it makes sense to go for a, let's say, best machine for every part of the surgery, which then, let's say, provides arguments for us. But in general, it's true. It can be challenging, but sometimes our distributors do more, let's say, general offerings based on their portfolio.
I have, if nobody has a question, I have a couple of questions before we have to come to an end. Could you please elaborate a little bit on innovation? How does innovation happen in your field?
I mean, in general, I would say one of the positive things from our perspective is that we are focused on refractive surgery only. So that's our lifeline, so to say. And so every R&D euro goes into refractive surgery. So we do have, I mean, a lot is let's say, exchange also with surgeons. So that's what I mentioned earlier, to really be close to surgeons, to the market. Surgeons have new ideas, new needs, and to listen to them. And what we also do is collaborate with startups. So we do have collaborations on the software side, partially. We're looking at, let's say, predictive elements of software. For example, we're collaborating on the treatment side. So that's certainly an important element. There are lots of startup companies in the ophthalmology in general, also coming with new ideas and having a collaboration where we bring in our knowledge of how to bring products to market can be very interesting.
Regarding the pandemic, what is the impact of the pandemic on your business, on your company, and possibly on your leadership style?
I mean, so on the business in general, we definitely have seen an impact during the closure of the clinics, let's say springtime to 2020. But after that, interestingly, people are annoyed by their glasses, because when you need to wear masks, you have foggy glasses all the time. Then you have a lot of Zoom and Teams meetings, and you see the reflection in the glasses. And on top of it, because you're at home and you're not traveling that much as you used to, surgery becomes plannable. So actually, we have seen an increase in treatments, let's say from August, September last year onwards. And so in general, the recovery has been very positive in most countries, and that has been quite nice and interesting. In terms of leadership style, I would say, I mean, it's probably similar to many other companies. I mean, the difference is, we are a mid-sized company. We have, let's say, more than 90% of our people in one place in Germany, so that makes it easier. But for sure, the digital interaction with our distributors, we just did a distributor meeting over 1 week, completely digital, with daily sessions, something which would not have been possible in that size earlier, but also which would not have been in the plane or on site otherwise. So to have discussions with a broader set of people is actually one of the benefits of having a digital interaction.
Last question. This is more a political question, actually. You're a medium-sized company, a hidden champion, as I would call you. What are you expecting from the new government in Germany? Possibly consisting of a coalition of Social Democrats, Liberals, and the Green Party.
So exactly, that would have been my question back to, so what is the new government going to be? We don't know yet. So
most likely it's
a bit
led by
difficult. Most likely, yes. So I mean, coming from Switzerland, Germany is quite overregulated already, you know, so I think even more regulation wouldn't make it easy. On the other hand, I mean, we have also seen labor market reforms under a socialist government, what was it, almost 20 years ago. Let's say my hope is that we stick to a political tradition of factful and meaningful changes, which are not necessarily, let's say, driven by ideology, but what needs to be done. I think similar to how we have been doing politics in Switzerland for many years. So hopefully that will be also the predominant thinking in the next government, and the FDP will certainly also bring some push from that side to the table. So that could even lead to let's say some maybe welcome changes to make Germany more competitive, or for Germany to remain competitive.
Thank you very much. We have to come to an end. First, I want to thank Domenic for his brilliant insights. I think we all learned a lot about iTech solutions. Thank you very much again, Domenic, and we wish you and Schwind all the best and every success in the future. Secondly, I want to inform you that on 9th of December, there will be another STARS Alumni Lounge with STARS alumna Katja Seidenschnur. She will be speaking about business development at Nestle. And the next public STARS webinar is in 3 weeks from now. And we have a great speaker. It's Tan Chong Meng. He's the group CEO of PSA Singapore. talking about the challenges of the world's largest transshipment hub. So that will certainly be a very interesting session, not only about the business, but also about leadership. I hope you see you then. In the meantime, take care, stay healthy. Thank you very much and goodbye.